What's going on, everybody? It is Tuesday morning. I've been reading the last couple days and the last couple weeks, really, that there's something going on up in Alaska. Something to do with the Russians and the Chinese doing military exercises near Alaska's shoreline. They have ships up there and they have jets flying around. And from what I've read, they've said that it is just standard military, training exercises. But I don't really remember ever reading about that, ever happening, especially during such a vulnerable time for this country and where we are at politically and economically, and the amount of presence they have up there. Not to mention the spy balloons that flew over the country last year. I think we've all forgotten about that, or we've forgotten about the nuclear submarine that went missing a year or two ago. It was a Russian one. But yeah, they're up there doing something near Alaska's coast, and the Americans have, we've transported troops up there, not a couple hundred, I think, in some kind of defensive posture. Thank God that our military is even doing that, or this administration is even doing that. I know the military would want to, but our administration would. Maybe that's why they're only sending a couple hundred troops up there. I don't know. But that's something to keep in mind. There's definitely a storm starting up there. You look at the rest of the country, or rest of the world. And then we have the hurricane that is apparently going to be a pretty gnarly one down in the Gulf. It's been raining here off and on the past day or two up in where I'm at in Virginia. And we don't typically get really bad hurricane weather, more inland. But a lot of y'all are on the coast that live really close to the ocean, especially down there. What you have to realize, what's different about hurricanes from now on, no matter how bad they get. If you remember Hurricane Katrina and how bad that was a disaster. That was a literal shit show. And it was terrible for a lot of people. But that's when America was still America. That's when people had some kind of decency left. And there was millions, but there wasn't millions and millions and millions of illegals in this country. What's going to happen when there is a hurricane to the proportions of Hurricane Katrina, with a bunch of people that do not have the American mindset? As you can see in the countries, or I'm sorry, not the countries, as you can see in the cities right now, where they're taking over apartments, where they're murdering people left and right, where they're raping people left and right, where a lot of these illegals are third world country mentality is being brought into this country. What do you think's going to happen when there is a natural disaster and America's civility goes down? Do you understand what that means? Like how bad it's gonna get so much worse than Hurricane Katrina if anything like that ever happens. I'm not saying this hurricane that's gonna happen here soon is gonna be like that. I hope and pray it doesn't for a lot of people. But it's a thought that you need to keep in the back of your mind, that you're not just dealing with a hurricane that can be potentially be really bad. You now have to deal with the illegal immigrants, illegal aliens, whatever you want to call them. You now have to deal with them in the country on top of that, on fighting for resources, fighting for, electricity, fighting for water, fighting for power in a territory. Like Katrina, like where that happened at, there's parts of it that are still messed up. Look where the houses, it moved houses. It disrupted whole cities. And people were out of power for weeks, months. If something like that happens now, with all the extra people, there's going to be less resources to go around. There's going to be less humanitarian help to go around. And people that come from third world countries that fight over that stuff, and I'm not trying to be mean about it, but people that fight over that stuff, like, they know what goes on. They know how to fight for that stuff. Americans are, we're relaxed, like, oh, the government's going to come and help me. It shouldn't be like that. You need to realize that you need to look out for your own family. You need to be prepared for your own family. Take precautions. It's like a snowstorm. Everybody goes right before the snow hits and buys everything they need. And there's people, when hurricanes happen, they don't leave until it's starting to pour down rain and, the traffic's backed up and they wonder why they can't leave the city. Or why you can't board up your house because there's no more plywood left at Lowe's because you wait until it starts raining. Like, when the alarms go off, hunker down or leave. You don't get in the tornado. You don't get into the storm shelter when you see the tornado. You get in there when the alarm goes off, and you have a little bit of time. It was just a big movie about that. It was actually a really good movie. But those things you need to understand. You need to learn from the past and what people did and what they didn't do, and what happened to those people that didn't do what they needed to. It didn't turn out good for them. The people that would rather go out and party and not prepare for things, doesn't turn out good for them. It says in the Bible to stock up for hard times. And when it's good times, stock up still for the hard times. It's literally talking about preparing for when it gets bad on any scenario, whether it is a hurricane or a flood, any kind of natural disaster, or some kind of military invasion that might happen up in Alaska. You need to prepare for these things now and understand that it is a good possibility. We all seen Red Dawn. I'm sure everybody's seen Red Dawn a million times, the new one and the old one. And the possibility of that happening are pretty low, I would say, because Americans, I think, would fight back really hard, really fast. However, the more and more I see how Americans act, it's getting a little sketchier and a little sketchier day by day. The more people that I see how, I don't even know how to describe it, passive they are. We just had that freaking rapper guy. I just saw an article about him, saying F America. How can you say that about your own country, dude? What's his name? Malcolm Moore, I think. How can you say F America? I'm pretty sure he lives here and he's made millions off of Americans. It was up in Seattle. I want to say that's what it said. It was an article where he was at a concert and he said, "Oh, F America." That dude has his wealth because of America. These people in Hollywood, they have their wealth because of America. That dude that kneels for the national anthem because he thinks he's entitled not to stand for it. He's made millions because of America. If it wasn't for America, they wouldn't have anything. The destruction of America is coming from within. The rot is from within. You need to get away from that. You need to start preparing away from what our government is telling you. Start preparing for yourself. Start thinking for yourself. There is so much going on right now in this world. Time is getting shorter and shorter every day. They're literally building up for either an invasion or some kind of attack. For what I was talking about in Alaska, one of the news ladies in Russia, I don't know if she was just joking or maybe just a suggestion or whatever, but they were saying maybe we should take Alaska back. And that's kind of what they said, before the invasion of Ukraine. And maybe we, maybe we should just kind of, walk over here a little bit and see what's going on. If that does happen in Alaska, America is automatically in war with Russia. And Russia has China and North Korea and all the other crazies. And who's on America's side? We've done pissed off all our allies. There's not too many allies left in America, and the ones that are allies are all part of the same agenda of destroying America. So it's really just you and your family and every other patriot and everybody else that wants to keep America alive, which I see day by day is fewer and fewer. You need to prepare for the storms that are coming, whether they're hurricanes, and you have to worry about, for hurricanes, you've got to worry about all kinds of stuff. The flooding, the crazy migrants, the crazy Americans. You got to worry about shit flying around in your yard, trees falling down, power going out. If you have enough food, if you can cook the food, if you can flush the toilet, if you got water. Your kids, if it's really, really bad, you still need to continue their education. You need to teach them about things. You need to, take care of waste if your toilet is not working. You got to take care of your pets. That's just one little small scenario with a hurricane or a tornado. That's just two stories, and I don't hear a whole lot being talked about them. A little bit about the hurricane, but I hear more about that on YouTube than I do actually on the news. And the thing that's going on in Alaska with the Russian troops, I don't hear about that at all, except for on YouTube. More people need to start talking about this stuff and making other people aware. Everybody needs to start talking about what is going on and what you can do about it. You can't be this silent majority and not say anything. You have to start speaking up. You have to start voicing your opinion, even if it upsets people. Even if you get blacklisted or you get, what's it called, where they bar you from going anywhere because you said something. That's the same thing that happened in World War II. You can't voice your opinion at first, and then what happens? And then they start attacking you politically and economically, and then they start making you wear armbands. And you say, "Oh, well, you can't, compare what's going on now to what happened in World War II." Yeah, you can, because that's exactly how it started. The really bad stuff that happened in World War II, that didn't start overnight. It was a couple years before the actual really bad shit started happening. You know what I mean? Like it starts and starts and starts little by little, and then it adds up, and then all of a sudden you're wondering how you got here. How did this happen? How did we let this happen in America? How did we let this happen in Germany? Whether it's this group or a different group, whatever group you are, every season of a country, there's something happening to a different group. And we wonder why we let it happen. Because we were not prepared. We weren't prepared for the weather. We weren't prepared for, what other calamity could happen. Get yourself prepared for these things. Plus, we still got to deal with everything else that's going on in the world. Over in Israel, there's about to be another huge war. That's something totally separate. The border is a totally it ties into it, but that's a totally separate one. That could be a 10-hour long conversation about what and how, why we got to do something about it. People starving in America, that's a whole nother conversation. What and how, why, what we should do about it. We as Americans need to start defending our right to be happy, to be alive, to protect ourselves economically, and to be quite honest with, brute force. We should be, as American citizens, we have the right to defend our own castles. That's what the Second Amendment was for, was to defend your own castle. Your castle might be your house, and eyes of the law. And I'm not saying do anything, but in a lot of people's eyes, their castle is their country. We should be allowed to defend our country if the government's not going to do it. If the government's not willing to defend our country, then who is? Who's willing to defend their own country right now? I don't see a whole lot of people willing to do that, and it scares the shit out of me. I get not wanting to go fight for a stupid war. I do. I get that 100%, and I agree with that. But when things come to America, people need to start standing up and helping out and fighting against it. When evil comes into this country, and I'm not even talking about militarily. That too. If somebody tries to invade the country, I think every American should stand up and fight against it. But when a hurricane happens, you should stand up and help out with people that need it. When bad things happen in this country, you need to help out your community. Go to food banks and donate, or go donate your time, or help build something in the community. You need to be there for our country if we want anything to survive. If we want what's left to survive, if we want to keep that, you need to start standing up and start helping out. I'm not talking about communists helping out, everybody does their fair share. I'm talking about you as an individual to stand up and protect your community, your town, your street. If your neighbor loses power, let them hook up to your generator. Just small things like that to help out and show that America is still America. Because, what's the point of being the United States if nobody is united? It's kind of common sense, man. But I keep going on these rants, man. I'm sorry. 2 things that I wanted to talk about. I talked about the possible invasion in Alaska from Russia, or just very strange military presence up there with China. And then we have a flood or a hurricane down in the Gulf, and we have an invasion on the border. Pick your poison, I guess. I don't know. Tell me what y'all think. Tell me what you think is going on in America. Tell me what you think you could do to help out the country. Have a great day.